You know that feeling? Like things are just coming apart a bit at the seams. Public health, education, it all feels shaky.
Yeah, and you keep hearing just vote harder, but it doesn't really feel like enough, does it?
Exactly. It kind of rings hollow. And you're swimming in all this information just wanting some clarity, right? Not just noise.
Mm-hmm. Well, that feeling really connects to the source we're looking at today.
Yeah, we found this really compelling essay by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD. It's on their Substack.
And Chamey reflects on this old Soviet poster from the early 20th century and pulls out these surprisingly relevant ideas for, well, for right now.
Yep.
It's a unique perspective, too. Chamey identifies as trans and autistic, which adds another layer.
So our plan for this deep dive is to really get into this essay and the poster it talks about. What can they actually tell us about, navigating these huge societal problems?
And maybe how to avoid feeling completely overwhelmed by it all. How to find some solid ground.
Okay, so let's picture this poster. Early 1900s Soviet. There's a figure standing way up high on this tower of books.
Right? You can see Lenin on one of the book spines.
Yeah.
This figure's got their arms raised towards this, like, bright, almost engineered future. Planes, cities rising up.
But then below, completely different scene. A village kind of shadowed, people just going about their lives.
And the caption is just, pow.
Yeah.
Only from the heights of theory can one see the horizons of socialism.
When I first encountered that, it really did feel like a switch flipped, like it cut through all the static.
Yeah, imagery can do that, right?
Yeah.
Especially for like a Gestalt processing mind, as the essay mentions. It just delivers the whole structure of the relationships all at once.
And this core idea emerges. Theory isn't some dusty academic thing. It's about getting perspective, elevation.
Exactly. You need that vantage point to see the whole system. Otherwise, the essay argues you're just stuck down in the weeds. You can't see the bigger picture, the structure holding things in place.
Okay, let's dig into that. This idea that focusing only on the immediate struggle, the material base, as the essay calls it, just isn't sufficient.
Well, look at the people in the village in that poster. They're shown as, busy, engaged in survival. But their faces are downcast, focused on the task right in front of them.
It makes you think, doesn't it, about today. So many people juggling jobs, costs going up, the safety net feeling thinner and thinner. It's not lack of effort.
No, not at all. It often feels like the structure itself keeps people trapped in that cycle. And this connects to Lenin's thinking, which the poster obviously references.
How so?
Well, Lenin argued that just, say, giving peasants land wasn't enough on its own. If you didn't change the fundamental ownership conditions, and importantly, their political understanding, their consciousness, you just create a different kind of precariousness. Smallholders barely getting by.
Okay. And the essay draws a line from that to modern policy talk.
Yeah, think about how we hear about access to things like healthcare instead of a right to them, or incentives to work tied to aid rather than just guarantees.
It's like these little concessions, these sort of piecemeal things that can be easily taken away, right? If you miss some paperwork deadline or something.
Precisely. It feels like temporary fixes, not structural change. You're bailing water, like you said, not fixing the leak.
So the essay's point is dealing with the immediate crisis is vital, of course, but it's not the whole story if the underlying system generating the crisis stays the same.
Exactly. And the essay really emphasizes using history, using the analyses and theories of people who faced similar struggles before. They act as maps.
Maps. I like that because relying only on our own immediate view can leave us lost, especially when everything feels like it's shifting.
Right. And the poster's message through the essay's lens is kind of haunting, but also empowering. We're not the first. Others found a way through dark times.
And they did it by understanding the structure, through theory, and crucially, by sharing that understanding.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that horizon. What does this height of theory supposedly reveal?
The essay describes the city in the poster's background. It's not presented as some fuzzy, sentimental utopia. It looks engineered, planned.
Yeah, you see those converging lines, light, flight paths, the buildings themselves. It suggests a future mapped out by theoretical understanding, a future with direction, maybe offered through things like public infrastructure, shared knowledge.
And the essay contrasts that strongly with the present situation, particularly in the U.S., arguing there isn't really a shared horizon anymore, no collective vision.
Right. It suggests that what's often offered, say, from the right wing, is more about a nostalgic aesthetic, like gold trim and trad wives, but built on the ruins of collective care, not really a plan for a shared future.
Okay, so that's one side. What about the critique of the Democratic Party in the essay?
The essay portrays them as, well, more like a private club for capital, Fluent in the language of inclusion, yes, but also implementing policies that, the essay argues, ultimately perpetuate harm and maintain the existing power structures.
So, from the essay's perspective, actually understanding the theory, the deep structures of how things work, is dangerous to them.
Because it clarifies things they benefit from keeping obscured. That's the argument.
Which leaves the population sort of caught in the middle, yeah. Between these two wings of capital, neither offering a genuine, widely shared horizon.
And in that vacuum, essential services get privatized, rationed, turned into commodities, which loops back to that warning attributed often to thinkers like Lenin. Reform that doesn't fundamentally rupture the system ends up serving the rulers.
And without theory, without that map, there's no coherent strategy to counter exploitation.
But the poster, as the essay reads it, holds out this possibility. A future that can be designed, developed collectively. If we study, understand the structures, and build the frameworks, it's presented as achievable, not just a dream.
Let's look closer at the figures actually doing the climbing in the poster. What does the essay highlight there?
Well, significantly, no one's just flying up, right? There's no magic. They are climbing together, helping each other up.
And the base they're climbing from, that tower of books, theory. And there are ladders providing structure for the climb.
It underscores that this is slow, deliberate work, and it's fundamentally collective.
Which is such a stark contrast to the dominant narrative we always hear, isn't it? Individual success, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Totally. And the essay suggests that this intense individualism isn't necessarily strength, but maybe a survival response. When community supports and systems fail, you feel like you have to go it alone.
But the poster's message, interpreted here, is the opposite. No ascent without theory, and no theory without each other. You lift together.
Progress comes from lifting together, not competing to climb over each other.
Okay, this idea of structure and how systems work leads into the essay's discussion of something it calls the big, beautiful bill. Can you unpack that?
Sure. The essay uses this hypothetical example, a bill that sounds great rhetorically, maybe offers some popular benefits, but hidden inside is what it terms a poison pill.
A poison pill, meaning?
In this hypothetical, the poison pill is a provision that cripples the judiciary's ability to actually enforce the laws in the bill, or maybe existing laws protecting people.
So it's not just changing the law itself, it's attacking the mechanism for holding power accountable to the law.
Exactly. It collapses the means of legal contestation. So rights might technically still be on the books, but they become unenforceable. An illusion of legality.
Wow, okay. And the essay is pretty clear about who wins and who loses if something like that happens.
Yeah, it argues the winners are those who benefit from deregulation and less oversight, landlords, hedge funds, big corporations. The losers, predictably, the most vulnerable, people with disabilities, renters, trans folks, anyone relying on those legal protections or safety nets.
And the essay makes this really chilling point that this precarity, this vulnerability isn't an accident. It's designed, it's monetized even, necessary for the system to function for the powerful.
The goal, the essay argues, isn't actually better governance in those scenarios. It's the elimination of resistance. It's consolidating power, maybe rule by force, just disguised as patriotism or efficiency.
This connects to what the essay says about the broader erosion of the safety net, doesn't it? Things like cuts to Medicaid, SNAP.
Right. The argument is that this isn't just about balancing budgets. It's framed as a deliberate strategy, a kind of counter-revolution by attrition.
Attrition, like wearing people down.
Exactly. Starving the public into submission, making them forget these services were ever rights, making them grateful for scraps. It's justified by austerity, which the essay basically calls starvation disguised as governance.
And this ties into that idea of pseudo-reform again.
The liberal fantasy, as the essay might put it, that you can just patch up the system with crumbs of redistribution. But the examples given are things like maybe a new clinic opens, but it's miles away with a huge waiting list. Or SNAP benefits that just don't cover the cost of food.
It provides just enough relief to maybe prevent outright revolt, but never enough for people to actually rest, recover, or organize effectively. Managed neglect, the essay calls it.
Yeah, a really stark phrase. It pacifies, but it doesn't heal. And all this dismantling gets framed as modernization, efficiency. But the essay argues it's really about the privatization of the public sphere, replacing solidarity with servitude.
So the takeaway here is that reformism, just trying to tweak the existing system, is seen by the essay as a mirage, something that delays real change.
Yes, because it ultimately capitulates when capital's core interests are threatened. The essay critiques, for instance, the Democratic Party's focus on preserving institutions, even broken ones, often prioritizing donor comfort over real resistance.
And the alternative, according to this analysis, requires those rungs of theory, a deeper understanding, not just talking points or compromises.
That's the core argument. And the essay touches on a generational aspect, too, how, say, boomers might have benefited from a stronger social contract, Gen X saw it erode, and millennials Gen Z inherited debt and normalized precarity.
Like the memory of things being different, free college, stronger unions, has been deliberately erased or downplayed.
Right. So the essay concludes that real, transformative change isn't likely to come from within those existing power structures. It comes from those outside, still climbing, using theory as their guide.
Okay, let's bring it back to the poster one last time, viewing it through this lens of climbing through collapse.
The essay stresses, again, it's not offering comfort. It offers, perhaps, truth. The focus is on that Tower of Books theory as a solid foundation and the act of climbing together.
The city on the horizon isn't paradise, but orientation, a direction.
And it emphasizes that split depicted in the poster. Those seemingly trapped below by the demands of survival, and those who made a conscious choice to find the ladder of theory and start climbing.
And the essay actually names names, right? Examples of thinkers who provide those rungs.
It does. It lists quite a few, intended as examples of this ladder. Marx, Lenin, Mao, Ho Chi Minh, Fanon, Castro, also Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr., specifically highlighting his later, sharper critiques of capitalism and militarism. And Fred Hampton.
It's not just the usual suspects, though. The essay makes a specific point about including revolutionary women who are often marginalized in these histories.
Absolutely crucial. It mentions figures like Claudia Jones, Assata Shakur, Angela Davis, Leila Khalid, Gloria Anzaldúa. The essay insists that a feminist lens is essential. Without it, your theory, your path forward, is incomplete.
And the argument is that the current system actively works to hide or distort these voices, these texts, to keep people from finding that ladder.
Yes, precisely. To prevent people from accessing these critical perspectives that might help them understand their situation differently. These aren't presented as historical relics, but as vital tools for making sense of now.
So theory gives you orientation. It helps you name the machinery of oppression, maybe see potential exits. It gives you leverage where before you just felt the weight.
That's the idea. Leverage where there was only weight. And the essay leaves us with a pretty stark choice, framed by the poster. Climb. Using these tools, or risk being crushed as things continue to unravel. The ladder's there, the books are there, and others are already climbing.
Now, it's easy to imagine someone hearing all this and dismissing it, right? Calling it delusional or just Marxist propaganda. The essay anticipates that.
It does.
Yeah.
And it points out that often those dismissals are deflections. They're ways to avoid actually grappling with the substance of the arguments.
It also makes that interesting point how often the people condemning these theories haven't actually read them. They're relying on hearsay, on narratives deliberately constructed to discredit the ideas.
Yeah, the essay draws a parallel to how, say, religious texts can be cherry-picked or misinterpreted to justify political agendas completely contrary to their original spirit. People condemn what they haven't actually studied.
The author, Jaime Hoerricks, shares a bit personally here, too, about coming to literacy later and having to consciously unlearn dominant narratives.
And mentions their Marxist grandmother as a kind of waypoint, a personal connection that helped navigate towards these alternative frameworks.
So the offering here isn't blind belief in some dogma. It's presented as a traceable path, through text, through structure, through history.
Right. The encouragement is very much read it yourself. Think critically, argue with it, dig deeper. It even points towards resources like the Marxist Internet Archive, which makes so much of this primary material freely available.
Which leads to the final thought, really. Unlike systems that seem to rely on keeping people fearful or uninformed,
This approach, this path of theory and collective understanding, actually embraces knowledge. It grows stronger the more it's shared, debated, and understood.